Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. It is Thursday, July 7th, 2022. This morning, the latest in the shooting of 25-year-old Jalen Walker in Ohio. What's the pulse of the community? Also, the suicide rate among Black youth has been increasing along with the number of suicide attempts and the severity of those attempts, according to the most recent Youth Risk Behavior Survey from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. All this morning, also this morning, I should say, is Houston Forward Times Associate Editor and NNPA columnist Jeffrey Boney has written an intriguing book about the Black community with the forward by Ben Crump, where he delves into what ails the community and what he believes needs to take place to revive hopes, dreams, and ignite a real movement. And he says, don't argue with me. We talked with Jeffrey Boney this morning on Let It Be Known. But first, Dawn Montgomery joins us from Atlanta, and also Bill Ellis of the Akron News Reporter. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks for joining us out of Akron. Real quick, Bill, we just wanted to get an update from you since you're there in Akron. And we know a lot of protests are going on. Give us the pulse of the community. What's happening there?
Well, the Akron community is outraged by the overkill of the Akron police when they attempted to stop a young Black man for a minor traffic violation. Allegedly, they fired over 90 bullets at him, hitting at least 60 of them hitting his body. So the community was completely outraged, and they took to the streets, and they were demanding justice for the family, and they were asking questions. How in the world could somebody get stopped for a minor traffic violation and end up getting shot 60 times?
And
so
Bill, let me ask you this, Bill. Are the protests still going on as we speak?
No, they have tampered down as a result that the fact that the city quickly displayed the police body cam video of the incident. But of course, that was one of the things that people were curious about. But it also led to a lot more questions and demands that the Department of Justice step in and do an investigation. The city of Akron did the smart thing, is they did not let the local prosecutor investigate the case. They turned it over to the Ohio State Bureau of Criminal Investigation to do the preliminary investigation. So.
I'm sorry, Bill. Tell me the relationship between the community and the Akron police prior to the shooting. Have there been tensions prior to the shooting?
Well, as many large cities, there's always going to be some contention between the police and the city. We are like other cities. We have a lot of gun violence, and so they have been really working on trying to address that problem, dealing, from a community standpoint and from a policing standpoint. The mayor hired a new police chief in, and he had been trying to reach out to organizations in the city to attack the problem of gun violence. And then all of a sudden this happened. So there's been some calls for some systemic change. They want better policing, more training for officers on how to de-escalate confrontations. So it really has this unnecessary and violent murder by the police has really galvanized the Black community here in Akron to really look not just to have protests. They're going for long-term systemic change in the way the police handle the community.
Well, Bill Ellis, the publisher of the Akron News Reader in Akron, Ohio, and NNPA member, we really appreciate the update. We thank you so much for getting up this morning to give a national update from something that's happening locally in your community, and that's what the NNPA does. Thanks so much, Bill. We look forward to hearing from you again. Appreciate you. And so,
Thank you.
Dawn, absolutely. And Dawn, just real quick on that, Bill mentioned about the again this whole idea of evaluating the police department studies, and haven't we had enough studies?
We have, and it's right there. We have plenty of evidence. I think I keep saying there's video of every single thing that we need to do. The evidence is there. You have people at protests now being arrested. I know more recently that I think I just saw a black man named Jacob Blake Sr., who was just recently arrested at a protest about Jayland Walker, along with another young black man. And the person who was filming it was Breonna Taylor's aunt. Like, come on. Like, it's this consistent cycle of this violence against our people, not just our communities, but just our people. Because it could be anybody coming into the city to, protest for justice and to really try to see some type of change come through. And we're literally seeing in real time that nothing is changing. I mean, look at how they set up for these protests. Look at how they're preparing for these things. I think I remember a tweeter stating on Twitter that she can't put in words how, seeing and knowing that Jayland Walker was shot 60 times, and then seeing the National Guard or whomever show up to be ready to fight against protesters. Like, that's your immediate response to something like this. And we need to see something better happen. I'm tired of kind of seeing police chiefs come up and try to explain what happened. You can't explain that. Like, just tell me what you finna do. It's just like, come on.
Well, and you're right.
Like, it's only so much that we can consistently continue to talk about. And in general, we need some of our political leaders to kind of just put a little more force behind these people, because clearly they're not paying attention to our voices. And when we show up in numbers, now, I'm not saying when we show up in numbers that nothing changes, because when we consistently do and we have a plan, yes, things will change. But how many more people are going to be arrested, assaulted, and or killed in order for that to happen?
Yeah. We're expecting at some point Jeffrey Boney to join us to talk about his book, Don't Argue With Me. So we're waiting for you, Jeff. The CDC, Dawn, reports that tracking suicide trends among students ages 14 to 18 over the previous 10 years found that of the 8.9% who reported attempted suicide, Black youth were among the populations with the highest rates of reporting attempts, accounting for 11.8%. By contrast, white youth accounted for 7.9% of those reported attempts, and Hispanic youth accounted for 8.9%. Dawn, obviously there's a problem. The pandemic has exacerbated the problem. In your reporting, what are you seeing as reasons for the spike in suicides among Black youth?
There's a disconnection between our generation and our young people. There really is. I know that me personally, I am a very, very consistent and staunch mental health advocate. I actually live with bipolar disorder, and I've talked about this in nauseum, honestly, about how my first suicide attempt was a major cry of help. And when you have that first attempt and there's something that parents can do, I think a lot of times in our communities, we're either told to pray about it or pray it away, or we're either told, you'll get over it. Well, in these days and times, we're seeing a lot of adults who can't handle what's been happening through the pandemic, the recession, things that are happening on their jobs and things of that nature. So imagine the stress and the issues that our young people are having to deal with. They have more access to things as far as like, chats online, video games. Some people are playing these games with these kids, and having conversations with them that they shouldn't be having. But in general, for us as parents, we have to be more active in our children's lives and get them to talk to us. We have to be more vocal about how we're seeing a change in their behavior, and things that they're doing. Then you have some young people that are high functional depressive young people, where
Yes.
they can function and they can do what they're doing, and you just would not know. But it comes down to us just really connecting with our young people and letting them know that they can trust us with some of the issues and things that they're going through, because a lot of times we never know that our actual parents went through some of the things that we're facing. I know I used to talk to my mom after my first attempt, and one of the things I realized was that some of the things that I experienced in my childhood, she experienced. So they kind of literally bridged our line of communication and allowed us to kind of create a better relationship. But one of the biggest things that helped me advocate for myself was knowing that I had a grandmother who was a preacher, who not only put me in front of the church, but not necessarily like she's depressed, let's get the devil out of her type deal. She put me in front of the church to say, my granddaughter is dealing with something, and we as a community are going to make sure she is okay. And if you are dealing with something in your household, because let's be honest, we don't talk about those things in our communities, even to this day, like just share that you're going through something, share that you are experiencing things. I know for a lot of our young people, especially our boys, they're not given an opportunity to cry, to be vulnerable, to kind of express their feelings. I get a lot of people will be around me and see my boys. I have a 17-year-old and 11-year-old, and understand that I let them talk. I let them say whatever they need to say. I let them feel whatever they're feeling. I let them get that out. And, I've seen that really change how they feel about themselves and how they can express themselves. And it's just really, really hard to see these numbers and to see them continue to go up. And I just feel like we just got to reconnect with our young people and make sure that they understand that we're here for them, and we're going to figure out how to solve these issues.
Well, it's interesting too. You mentioned several things, including your own experience, and when we see Dawn Montgomery, we see this bubbly, outgoing personality, and that's another thing, right? We can't tell by looking at someone what they might be going through. How important is that, Dawn?
That's huge. I have close friends where if I say I'm okay or I'm fine, they know. Let me ask a few more questions. It's like I'm not going to settle for just a general reply. And everyone's busy, everyone's going through something. But because I have been very vocal about my disorder, my mental illness, and the things, mood swings, and things that I experience, I think that it's really created this support system that I've always needed, as not just as a woman, but as a mother. There are certain things that I would reach out to my children's fathers for a little bit of help here and there, and they step up. And so it's one of those things where not only do we have a disconnect with the younger generation, but we also have just this disconnect between people, like what's happening in everyone's lives, to where no one's showing each other grace or empathy, or figuring out how to really be there for someone else, even sometimes when you're going through it. I know a lot of times for myself, one thing that helps me keep going is me knowing that I can help others in the midst of my stuff, so that's just something that I've just been very grateful of, being able to recognize those things and kind of be very vocal about that.
Yeah, and during this, the CDC study found that there was an even greater difference in reported attempts by race among female students. Black female students accounted for 15.2% of those reported attempts. White female students made up 9.5% of that population, and Hispanic female students accounted for 11.9%, about 12%. So we see in both young black females and black males, we live in a world, we've been talking about it ad nauseum on this program, of white supremacy. We see the attacks on rights that really, the fundamental rights of African Americans are being attacked, from the Supreme Court through Congress, and even in some instances through the White House. So there's a lot of pressure being a Black American in the Black American youth, isn't it?
It is. It is. And then just think about how we're trying to raise them. It's the system is fighting against us. The world is against us. And then even in our own home, there are battles that we're just not really, sharing of how we're getting through. I know it's all great to look as if you're the perfect mom on social media and you're doing all these things with your children. But how do you get through the hard times? How do you get through their personal development and growth? I know that for a lot of young Black female students, because I was once one, we deal with a lot of adults who see us either thrive in that space and they try to immediately dim our light. It's almost as if they can sense that we're going to be, greater than possibly what they could have ever been, like if we're just going to be honest. And it's an attack on us. Then when you think about how Black female students are disciplined, we talk about this in nauseam as well through just Black press reporting, and how young women, for their hair, for the way they dress, for the way if they raised a question in the classroom, they were deemed, being, combative and rude or argumentative. And it's just one of those things where, how do we prepare or give our young Black women, the skills to kind of deal with these things early on and really actually protect them? Because there's only so much we can do when they're at school throughout the day. And then later on, we find out what happened, or later on, we find out that there was an issue. And then you also got to realize is when you do report something, you got to either fight against the whole school system, the principal, the superintendent, the community, honestly, because a lot of times the community doesn't want this type of light being shined on them. I mean, I can personally attest to my own personal experiences in Ellisville, Mississippi, at South Jones High School in Jones County, Mississippi, where
Wow.
me and my mother had to take on the Jones County school board for various instances and situations that were done towards me right after my suicide attempt. Things were happening before my suicide attempt, but right after, it just kind of got worse. And it was one of those things where I learned early on, I've got to use my voice. I've got to just stand my ground. I've got to be very determined in, letting people know, like, these things are happening to us. And that was my biggest thing. It wasn't just me. I just so happened to be vocal about it. There were other people. And so, our young women need us. Our young boys need us. I know that for a lot of them that are figuring out who they are, they're dealing with having to face those things. I know that a lot of our families in our communities aren't prepared for those conversations when those young people do decide to come out. I know that can be hard, either for a mom and or a father in our communities. But the biggest part about it is our children need to know that they are loved and valued and that they are safe and that we're willing to protect them at all times.
Yeah, National Suicide Hotline is available 24 hours a day, 800-273-8255. Again, it's 800-273-8255. And there's also the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, NAMI.org. Please, if you're experiencing any thoughts, any struggles, please reach out. There is help available. And of course, you can remain anonymous. Dawn, your story is both, it's both heartening and disheartening, but we're so glad that you are showing yourself to be an advocate for this and strong about this. We're going to move on now. Jeffrey Boney, he wears many hats. The associate editor of the Houston Forward-Times. He's a columnist for the NNPA. He's also Missouri City Councilman and Mayor Pro Tem out in Texas. He's a speaker. He's a radio host. He's a talk show host. He's just Jeffrey Boney. And one of the things I've learned about Jeff is the title of his book, Don't Argue with Him. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, good morning to you.
Jeff, Ben Crump wrote the foreword to your book. A lot of people would pay a lot of money or at least do some crazy stunts to get Ben Crump to write the foreword to their book. Why? Let's start right there. Why did Ben Crump decide to write the foreword to your book and the full title of your book? Give it to the folks.
The book is called "Don't Argue with Me: A No Nonsense Approach to the Issues in the Black Community." And to answer your question, Stacey, first of all, thanks for having me on once again this morning to talk about the book, which I believe is timely and a much needed read for all of us. So he wrote the foreword for the book primarily because it is a necessary read for this day and time. We have some issues that have been recurring in our community year after year, and we always try to figure out what the answers are to those various issues. And because he is a freedom fighter in his own right, not only is he a friend, but he's my fraternity brother. And once I shared with him the vision of what I was doing with the book and allowed him the opportunity to see what I was writing, he considered it a no-brainer to pen the forward for the book and to be able to get behind something that he believes, and definitely I believe, is a much needed read for this day and time.
Yeah, and Jeff, you talk a lot about the ancestors, our ancestors in the book, and even you talk about a Miss Leola from your neighborhood. Tell us about Miss Leola. She seems like a busybody, but there's also the other side of that, being a busybody in the neighborhood.
So a lot of people, man, they typically judge you based off of what they see. And in my case, a lot of people see the suits. They know that I'm a journalist. They know that I'm an elected official. They know that I'm a former banker and businessman, entrepreneur. But what they don't know is I was a hard head and I grew up rough streets of South Park, Houston, Texas, 3rd Ward, and in South Park, which is one of the low to moderate income communities in the Houston area. I was a bad actor and I hung around a lot of bad actors. And on my street, right across the street, 2 houses over, was the second largest drug dealer in South Park. And, there was a bunch of drug dealing and prostitution and criminal activity going on my street in Southtown Street. But on that street was Miss Leola Prevost. And she was a stalwart in the community, had been there for years, raised her children there, and basically paid the taxes and paid the mortgage to live in that community and own her home. And day after day, everybody would see those blinds moving on her house, and they knew that she was checking out what was going on in the community. And it was always frustrating to many of us, especially our young people, us as young people, because when we got home, our parents knew what the hell was going on, and that was primarily because Miss Leola was the one that was telling our parents what was going on. And while we were frustrated and upset about what she was doing back then, as I got older and of course had a change of life and understand my purpose in life, I realized that she was actually doing us a favor. She was looking out for her community, and she wanted to make sure her community was safe. She wanted to make sure the children were safe, and that we weren't doing things that were going to put us in harm's way. And we didn't appreciate it then, but we need more people like Miss Leola, and we do have a lot of people like Miss Leola, but we've gotten away from that, where community responsibility. There's that saying, that African proverbs, that it takes a village to raise a child. And in this particular case, many of us as African Americans, we've gotten away from that. We've moved to the suburbs and felt like we were trying to escape that life. But at the end of the day, there are many people that still live in those conditions, and they need a Miss Leola. They need people who are going to sound the alarm and let us know that there are challenges and the problems that exist in our community. We don't want those issues in our community, and we need to address them.
Well, Jeff, you talk about sounding the alarm, and you also talk about the generation of leaders that came before us. We don't want to disregard those who laid a solid foundation and left a trustworthy blueprint to follow. But who is sounding the alarm today in the Black community as overall? I mean, is there someone that we can count on to sound that alarm, to be a Miss Leola?
Well, there are many individuals that are doing that, and there are many organizations, grassroots organizations that are doing that. I think many times when we talk about the issues that are going on, and no disrespect to, some of the older organizations, larger organizations like your NAACP or your, National Urban League, who are definitely much needed in our community, but there are a lot of entities and individuals that are in our communities that are sounding the alarm, but it takes a collective unity. It takes a personal responsibility, for us to realize that, these issues are bigger than just one person, bigger than one entity. It takes all of us to be able to address some of these things. And, in the introduction of my book, I talk about us needing an SOS. And when many of us who are familiar with what an SOS is like a distress signal. And right now, if like never before, we need to sound the alarm and issue an SOS to say, listen, these issues are not going anywhere. And, we can't look for anyone outside of the Black community to say today, Superman is not coming, and so what we need to do is be
Did
able
Superman
to
ever go into the Black community, by the way? Batman.
say what now?
Did Superman or Batman, did they ever go into the Black community? I just
what? I've never seen them there.
Yeah,
I
I've
mean,
never seen
do
them,
we? I don't even know if we see them in the movies, but nonetheless,
Right.
we do realize though that there are a lot of superheroes, or sheroes and heroes that are in our community that maybe they don't get the credits, they don't get the screening, they don't get the promotion, they don't get the push like many of these superheroes do, on a day-to-day basis, but they're out here fighting the good fight. And we need to, like never before, just like we talk about in the book, Don't Argue With Me, that we need to, we like one of the chapters I have is we don't need pit bulls, we need chihuahua. I mean, we don't need chihuahuas, we need pit bulls. And a lot of us are out here just doing a bunch of talking and are not, putting our money where our mouth is, not putting our efforts where they need to be in order to bring about change.
And Jeff, the book is called Don't Argue With Me, a no-nonsense approach to the issues in the Black community. You can get it at jeffreylboney.com, right?
Yes, jeffreylboney.com. You can go check it out. And for those who are part of the viewing audience of Let It Be Known or members of the NNPA, they can definitely go in there and apply the NNPA promotional code, and they'll get a discount in order to get the book.
And Jeff, you talk in the book a little bit about around 2016, 2017, you ran for office. Why did you run for office?
Well, I ran for office, man. I looked at what was going on in 2016 with Donald J. Trump running for the nomination for the Republican Party to become the president of the United States. I had a nationally syndicated radio show at the time every day, and I talked about what I saw and what I was, what I was viewing, and I felt like he was galvanizing those that, he had a bunch of dog whistle comments and actions, and those people were resonating with him. And I said, look, if we're not careful, he's going to become the president of the United States. I know everybody's enamored by the Clintons and particularly at that time, Hillary Clinton. But I said, if we don't do what we need to do, he's going to become president. And sure enough, he did. And prior to him actually being nominated, I made the decision that I was going to not allow that type of vitriol to come into my community. Because, you look around and you be like, man, somebody needs to run for office. And I looked at many of the people that were sitting on my council. 4 of the 7 people that were on council at that time were over 70 years old. And I was like, man, look, and it's like God talked to me and was like, if not you, then who? And I was like, yeah, if not me, then who? So I threw my name in the hat, ran for public office in announced in 2016 and was elected in 2017 and just got reelected to my 3rd term. And now I serve as the mayor pro tem for the city of Missouri City.
And Jeff, do you feel you're making a difference?
Yes, I'm seeking to continue to make a difference. One of my mentors once told me, Jeff, you don't have to have a title to make a difference, but damn it, if you get a title, you better make a difference.
Jeffrey Boney, Don't Argue With Me, a no-nonsense approach to the issues in the Black community, jeffreylboney.com. Jeff, I know we got you on a little late. We wish we had some more time with you. It's always good to hear what you have to say. I'm not trying to argue with you, okay?
That's all right. That's all right. You won't win. You won't win anyway.
Jeffrey Boney,
Hey,
check
look,
him out.
I look forward to getting back on with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can read about this. We did a nice a feature on Jeff Boney and his new book. Many of the Black newspapers in the NNPA family have been picking up that article. It's on the NNPA's newswire. Should be on blackpressusa.com real soon. And papers like the Houston Forward Times and other newspapers around the country. Thanks for joining us this morning. And again, if you're having any issues with suicidal thoughts, if you know someone that might be struggling with it, please reach out to the hotline. Reach out to NAMI, NAMI.org. We will see you tomorrow.